work you.
Right, all the questions I had pretty much as they went, they sort of answered, so I may come back to them. But, right, who's got questions? Come on, you've got to have from that. That was amazing.
The thing that Darren said on the end is, which I have it written above my desk, is don't get it right, get it written. And I think if there's one piece of advice to take that away today, it doesn't matter how bloody awful it looks, get it on the page. And the example I was using, I've got a friend who's a fantastic potter, and you go home every night, and on a plinth there is these exquisite pieces of porcelain, beautifully lit, they look fantastic, and they go, wow, she's so talented. I've been to her workshop, she's got a skip round the back with all the stuff she chucked out, and I feel that about writing. Don't try and perfect it on, and don't get hooked on that first 10,000 words where you keep on, get it on the page, then go back, or get someone else to do it for you.
Yeah, because I mean, I totally echo that, because you know, when I started writing, that was one of the first pieces of advice that was given to me. Just write it. Don't. When I had a go at writing, I don't know, 15 years ago, and I would get the first chapter done, and I'd go back and check it. And then I'd, I'm not too good at that, so I'll do it again. Then I'd read it again and check it. And you'd never get past the first chapter. So, yeah, write the whole thing out. Almost if it's like, it might even sound like I read like a sort of stream of consciousness. But once you've got it there, you can shape it. You can start to trim the edges and tidy it up. And actually, as Darren says, you can't edit nothing.
And also, it doesn't have to necessarily be linear. I like to work in a linear fashion, but I've got a friend who writes, and is quite well known, and she writes, put something clever in here, and then goes on the next bit, which is in her head, which she knows what she's going to do, but it's that bit. Or
do any of you use any software like Scrivener, or do you just write on Word?
Word.
I've got Express, and I don't know if that's compatible with Word or not.
I've just got on any word processing program. I haven't got any one of the fancy.
Just use standard Word.
Which social media platform is the most useful?
For me personally, the Twitter thing has worked really well recently.
And I'm old school, so I use Facebook, because I can't be that succinct.
I must admit, I find Facebook better.
You have to do it for me.
I find, sorry.
But I think it's a great way to promote your work. It's a great way for people to be encouraging, and I don't think it matters which platform you're actually on, as long as you're on there and you're doing something.
Sorry, it's a head game, isn't it? If you're on one of these social media things, it means you are letting the world know that you're a writer. And just the process of doing that does attract people to you. It does make people want to come and find out a little bit more about you. Because writers are quite exciting people, aren't they? I mean, you're not really, but from the outside, people go, "Ooh, you know, you're a writer. Can I ask?" And they want to know more about you. And it's exactly the same.
But they don't see you in your jammies.
Drinking vodka on your cornflakes because you can't take it anymore. Yeah.
Is there any pros and cons in using the pen name as opposed to my own?
I've got probably 6 other names. All the checks come addressed to me, which is really important. There are many reasons for doing it. When I write erotica, it's mostly because I didn't want my sons to go, or my son's friends to go, your mother. Anyway, the second reason is a marketing ploy, because when you go in to buy a book from a bookshop, it's not so true now. Research has shown that people choose between in the centre section in the bookshelves, and they're between D and M. So you choose a pseudonym that's in that range as a surname. The other thing that's quite useful to do, and you'll see it happening more and more, is that people emulate the names of people who are famous. So you get somebody with a famous surname and then a different Christian name, and that is quite deliberate, I think, to try and tweak the public imagination so they choose that book. So there are pros and cons. It depends on what you've written. If you don't want your mother to read it, use a pseudonym. If you're proud of it, if you've got you need a professional distance as well. There are books that are written that where you drop yourself right in it because it's very close to reality. So that's another reason for changing the name.
Yeah.
Choose something that means something to you. Because otherwise, when it comes out, you want something that when you see that name on the cover, you think, yeah, I'm proud of that.
Like the name I gave you.
Yeah.
Yeah, measles.
Hercules Rockefeller, wasn't it?
Sorry, they're all coming up with names for each other. Go on, you've got to tell everyone your name.
Well, I'm going to change mine to Hasselhoff because everyone loves their Hoff, don't they? Oh, Hasselhoff for it is.
Go on, John, what was yours?
Measles.
Measles St James.
And what was yours, Sue?
Judy Railway.
I think there was a railway in there.
We did that whole Bourne thing, you know, first out, first at the road it goes in.
Is it true that it's worth putting an initial in your name as well? So that you've got J.K. Rowling in the case her mum's name, but she was told to put the K in. Does that make it more?
I think writing a good book might be the thing. I think that if you've got something that's very short and you're only going to use an initial, it's quite like P.D. James.
Yeah.
If you're just going to use a first initial, to make it more memorable, it's probably good to have two initials. But I don't think that that's going to make any difference if the book's pants. You know, you need something that's solid and captures the public imagination. And one of the things that Darren said is the idea about reading. The greats, you know, the Jane Austens of our time and all that, the stories are still fabulous, but the telling is different now. And I think that scene stuff, I don't know where that came from, I thought it was important to say, that it's about what is fashionable now. And what's fashionable now is short, sharp, filmic writing for popular fiction. So, I don't know where that came from, but I've just said it anyway.
Or pithy writing.
Pithy.
Yeah.
Do you think it's worth spending a lot of money on going on the writing courses and things?
I did do one of those, and I didn't spend a hell of a lot of money, but what it did, I had an assignment to do for the first. The very first thing I had to do was write a short story about blah blah blah, and I wrote it. And ended up writing a book. Rather than going through all those, all it did for me was just to spark things off. They are, I mean, I looked through the prospectus, and for me, it just kind of showed me quickly what I could do. So it said, try and write something in an analytical fashion, try and write something which is very descriptive, try and write something snappy, try and write an advert, these kind of things. I never got around to it because all it did for me was it sort of sparked. I got some lovely feedback which said, you're very good at this, you should really try and write some more, keep writing. And I did, and I didn't actually get around to finishing the rest of the course because I ended up writing a novel.
So I come from a slightly different place. I think because I've just finished the course and I found it really valuable. But I think you're quite unique because you just seem to be able to write all the time, and that's really enviable. But I kind of compare it to like going to the gym. If you go to the gym, you're going to get fit. If you go to the gym with a personal trainer, you're going to get fitter. And I think for me, it's been something similar. Like I've always been writing, but because I've been on this course with people who are really established writers, who don't let me stop when I want to, who make sure that week on week I get the job done, I've ended up being fitter because of it. So it depends what kind of character. If you're a put your head down and get on with it kind of person, then it probably isn't for you. But I benefited from.
I mean, I picked up from. I picked up lots of information from the course, but not primarily as a quick fire sort of thing. They would say, try your writing to do this, try your writing to do that. And rather than spending hours on each, specific area of that course, I just sort of took it on board quickly and went for it. And I mean, I've been writing for a long time prior to that. I've been writing I started songwriting when I was 16. And so I'd been writing. The thing I had to do was to change my approach and to change the angle I was coming from, because when I was writing songs, the idea of writing a song is you have something you might have a really profound subject, like world peace, and someone like John Lennon will condense that right down into Imagine, and it'll be perfect. The idea with the books is you might have a seed of an idea, and you just let it grow, and And you explore every avenue, you explore every character's history, their personality, and yet it just explodes. So for me it was a different kind of approach, but I had the writing disease, if you like, before that anyway. Yeah.
I didn't go on any courses, and therefore I think I spent a lot of time making horrendous mistakes. But I think one of the most important things to do is what Darren said, and you, is to read. Is to read what is selling now. Not that means it's good, better or worse than anything that's gone before, but that is what is selling now. That's what people are looking for now. Not necessarily that specific story, but the style. So read broadly. Courses are fat. I mean, the Fable paper course is particularly well known.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they put you in front of a lot of people.
Yeah. But I just learned from making a huge number of blunders.
Sorry, it goes back to what we kind of said. There's no right or wrong way to do it. You know, it's exactly.
I think also the benefit of
Do what you want.
going on writing courses, and I was part of a writers group, I was part of a postal writers group, and then went on to join a professional writers group, is that you can whinge about the same things.
Yeah.
People understand, that's right.
I think it really helps you with your confidence as well, because writing such an insular thing. And I don't know if anyone's heard of Swanwick writing summer school, but I've been to that for the last few years, and that is just fantastic.
Sitting up till 2 in the morning, drinking wine and talking to somebody else who's doing what you're doing is worth its weight in gold, isn't it?
It's absolutely amazing. Just the whole Monday to Friday, you can just be a writer. You know, you're not a mum or a teacher. And I've come away from there every year, just full of words.
It's interesting you say about the confidence thing. Sorry, the confidence thing, and you alluded to it as well. Is sometimes as writers we think we're absolutely rubbish. We think, what on earth am I doing? But you know, for me, I think that's kind of essential. Faith and doubt, they're both essential. You know, because you need faith. You need to believe in what you're doing. You have to stand by your belief that you have an important story to tell. But the doubt tempers that a little bit and sort of stops you running away with a swollen head.
There's a lovely thing, it's something that Virginia Woolf wrote, but I don't know, one of the characters says it, not her. And she said, the character says, I wrote something, and by the end of the day I thought it was the best thing that any man had ever written. And he came back the next morning and he said, it's pants. Obviously I'm paraphrasing. No, it's complete rubbish. Why did I think? And that's what happened. It comes in waves.
Yes.
That's bloody
So
brilliant. God, that's terrible.
So frustrating.
Sorry.
So I was just curious about your creative processes, because I'm very much I get a bit possessed by it, and I go, and then I find it really hard to just routinize it and make it something that happens every day. So is that something that you struggle with, or do you have a routine and you just go for it?
I write every day, but that's because I force myself to do it. And you go through waves, the whole wave thing. You're feeling particularly good, or you're writing a moment in your story which you really captured, and you can see it really clearly and profoundly in your head. So getting those words out, fine. And some weeks I'll sit and write. I've written 10,000 words in a week. Just sat there, just like a maniac. And then the next week I wrote 800, and of that 800, 600 of them were rubbish, and I knew they were rubbish. But you got to do it, and it is difficult to routine it. But if it wasn't difficult, everyone would be a writer. I think for me, well, this is probably quite naive, but I think most of the battle of being a writer is actually finishing a book. Because most
letting it go.
Because I've got so many friends and they stop. And you can be. I mean, this book I've just finished, a 92,000 worder, was an idea that came into my head after a car crash in 2006. And I started writing it then, and then had waves of doing stuff, and then I scrapped 40,000 words and kept doing it. I actually managed to get to the end, and the only reason I got to the end was because I just kept going, even when everything was saying this is rubbish, or you're hungover while you're trying to write, or I mean, I've done a main 70,000 of the words that have now been used. I wrote at the same time as having my first son. So when everything should have been stop, you are knackered, you're covered in baby poo, you haven't slept in 4 days, stop writing. There was the other part that was just like, just 200 words, just get down to 200 words. And that voice, you've really got to let come through. Because that doubt will tell you to, just will. I mean, hopefully, some of you it won't, but every single day it tells me to stop doing it, every single day.
Get a proper job.
Yeah, get a real job. Get a real life.
Yeah.
Come like your mates, wear a suit. Ah! No, I never want to wear a suit.
I can't stop that.
But yeah, it's just, and you have to force yourself to do it.
Yeah.
And I keep coming back to the whole being a part of a right group, being part of a course, because as soon as you get on one of them, you're not on your own, so therefore you can't skip a day. Because people will hound you if you skip a day. So it's so valuable, it's such a valuable thing to try and do. Yeah, so everyone.
It's an excellent therapy as well, isn't it?
Well, my process, it's tricky really. I mean, inspiration is absolutely everywhere. And there's a great book by Upton, which is called How Prose Can Change Your Life. And some of the things he was saying in there, the idea that Prose wants you to look at things, not just see them, but look at them. You know, be analytical.
Yeah.
Almost to the nth degree, you know, and really observe things. For example, I mean, I used to use the story of when I wrote a song years and years back called Phone Booth, and it just came from driving home one day, and there's a guy in a phone booth, and his head banging with the damn thing. He's going nuts, and he's kicking it, and he's smashing it, and he's going in there like a Tasmanian devil. What on earth is going on there? And you just start to ask questions, be inquiring. You start off with, well, who is he? What's his name? Where does he live? What's his background? Why is he in there? And this is a thing I often do with, workshops, for example. I used to give them the title of The Man at the Side of the Road. And you just ask questions. You be curious. You say, well, who is he? How old is he? What does he look like? Where's he come from? Why is he waiting there? And what does the road look like? Is it a little lane? Is it in the city? And you just build up this world through being inquiring and asking questions. And that's how the stories sort of come from me. I mean, the plane beneath the Havelock House for me all started when I was over in New Zealand. We stayed in these little houses which sort of protrude out from the mountain, on sort of stilts. And me and my boys we were playing under there, we also made a film playing cops and robbers, all those kind of imaginative things. And just this idea of I said, well, where would that lead? Where could that story lead? And eventually led me to this particular story. But the actual process when I work on the book, first of all, I write the synopsis. And the synopsis might only be 2 pages long. A quick fire idea of what, in essence, the story is about. If at the end of the synopsis, I think, there's some legs in this, I'll go on and do a more slightly more detailed synopsis. And that might be, 1,000 pages long. 1,000 words long. Easy target. And then, once I've done that, if I'm still happy, I come up with a sort of a chapter plan. And in some respects, those chapters are going back to the idea of a filmic and scenic kind of thing. They're like the scenes, if you like, of the film. And I go through that, say what's going to happen in each scene. And if I get to the end of the chapter plan and I'm still interested in it, then I go for the book. So for me, the planning is really important. I have gone through that whole process. I've done the synopsis, then the more detailed synopsis, and I've done the chapter plan, and I got to the end and thought,
Because you've got to love it, haven't you?
Yes.
Because if you don't love it by the time you get to the end of planning it, you're going to loathe it by the time you get to the end of the book. Because even if it's an idea that you love, you're going to loathe it by the end of the book. So you've got to have something passionate. Yes,
No, that's
I can't forget it.
No.
I'm a bit like, I started off a bit like you, where I was writing huge bursts, and then when I got involved in commercial fiction, I realised, as Darren said at the end, that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so to turn out books regularly, I realised that I had to break it down into, I'll do perhaps 5,000 finished, completely polished words by the end of a week. I have a friend who's a journalist who said anything over 50 words a day is a bonus. And it's the same principle, just write, and you will eventually adopt a rhythm that suits you. And don't be too critical of your process. I think writing every day is a really good idea. I also think I use John's method. I plot and plot and plot until I'm certain that it hangs together. But each writer evolves a different process. And don't beat yourself up if you do it differently. The most important thing is to get it on the page.
It's intuitive, isn't
I
it?
found things have developed through the book, and it started to write itself, and then when I got back to put it on the computer, I thought, no, that's rubbish, I'm going to take that out and put this
I think there is an evolution in everybody, isn't
Yeah.
there? When that as you're going along, you will discover that you think, oh, actually, if he'd have done that on the Thursday, that would never have happened.
Yeah.
So on word processing, you can go back and put in
You
the
can,
thing.
yeah.
And also, as you get more familiar with your people, because when you first start to write about your people, you don't know them. And it's like being introduced to a party, and you say, oh, no, I quite like you, yes, that's lovely to meet you. And then as you get to the book, you think, oh, you bastard. And you rush back to reinforce your values, which is the joy of the word, the word program, or any word processing program. And I think it's important to do that. I also keep a blank document open all the time to put notes down in, and also when I'm writing longhand, I have a notebook and I write, you know when whether you're left or right handed, there's a page that's not got any indentations on it, it's lovely. And if I'm going to write, I write on that page, and I leave the indented page, the other side, blank. Because you can bet your bottom dollar when you're writing one good thing or one thing, something else will come into your head. So I make the notes on the left-hand side for when I go, because otherwise you'll never remember them. We all think, oh, I must remember that, and of course you never do.
Yeah, never go to sleep, with an idea.
Oh, God.
Waiting.
God.
It won't be there
It
anymore.
won't be there. But you'll know it was there.
Yeah.
You know it was there.
You know it's a bestseller as well.
Yeah,
But
and
it's
you
gone.
know the resolution of that plot point, you just couldn't, Notebooks everywhere. I always carry a notebook with me all the time, and I have been known on the motorway to draw it from the hard shoulder and write something down.
Are you any of you notebook addicted?
Yeah.
Stationery.
Stacks of
addiction.
Post-it notes as well. Well, I love a post-it note.
It's like crack cocaine. Lovely pens. Sorry.
Do you ever get to a point when you're editing that you can actually read something you've written without changing it, or is that me? I can't seem to read anything I've done without wanting to change something.
There's always a better way to put it.
I'm sure I've changed things back the way they happened in the first place, without realising.
The thing is, I think with all art, there comes a point where you have to abandon it. You have to say, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Because you can, certainly with, with I suppose, technology and your ideas and the fact that you're changing as a person, your ideas are changing as a person, your values are changing. You could keep writing that book, in theory, for the rest of your life, because you would constantly change it. You'd feel differently about this character on this day. You'd feel differently about its predicament on another day. And what sounded good or read well when you wrote it, in 2010, might not sound. You have to abandon it at some point.
And also, if you read something that you wrote in 2010 and you don't think it's bad, then you've not progressed as a writer.
Yeah.
Because I go back and think, what? Yes. And I think that outrage, that kind of horror, is a really healthy thing because it means that your writing hopefully is developed.
Yeah.
That's encouraging.
Yeah, I think you've got to get to the end, you've got to do what you can, and then when you're at a point where you're starting to question whether you're doing it any good, let it go.
Yeah.
And let someone else see it, and give it to an agent, give it to a publisher, let it be their problem.
Right at the end and sing that Let It Go song from the
Yeah, let it be their issue.
Sue said you explained that you were published mainstream in the early days and now. And you've said about self-publishing. What route have you gone to?
I'm I'm with a publishing house for the first two. I'm actually with Bird's Nest Book on a book that we think is going to be out October.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So October, so new children's title should be about October with Bird's Nest. They're wonderful. So once you get your stuff going, submit. Yeah, I'm with another publishing house that when I got so excited and so carried away, I finished a sleep taker and then got to a point where I was drunk actually, which gave you a bit of Dutch courage, and I went, well, I'm going to send it, I'm going to email it, and I emailed it out to a couple of publishing houses that I knew would take unsolicited work, because I didn't have an agent, to do research, which is really helpful, find out who's printing what. And this publisher took it on, and I've since found out, now that I'm a little bit wiser, that they are mainly vanity publishing, which has its place because it gets your work out there and it gets you writing more and it gets you, and you know, I generated sales off of the book and 52 in the Waterstones chart for a little while with it, and so it did all right, but they're not particularly nurturing. So with vanity, pros and cons. Vanity publishing, if you've got something that works, they will be interested in taking it on because they're interested in making money out of you, as all publishing houses are, which they should be, because it keeps us in a job. But it won't necessarily give you a lot of time or give you a lot of nurturing, or so yeah, just a little vanity. Just be cautious when approaching vanity publishing. I wouldn't go down the same route again. Hence why I'm now working with Bird's Nest Books, and hence why I'm now I'm talking with 5 agents who I'm trying to get interested in representing to get stuff done.
If you go indie,
Yes.
you'll probably pay as much. Because vanity publishing implies you pay for it. You're paid to be published.
Yeah.
If you go the indie route, you can pay the same amount of money to a series of professionals, probably spend
Yes.
about the same money,
Yeah.
but you will have control.
Not tactical.
Yeah, probably about much better than you could. The mainstream thing has, as I said, changed tremendously. I used to be able to earn a living at it, and now can't. If you sell a novel, if you get an agent, you get a good deal. Unless you hit big time, the marketing budgets are really, really small. And from a paperback book that retails at $3.99 in a supermarket, you will possibly get 11p. So that's a lot, you know, you get a proportion of it, and then if you've got an agent, they take 15%. The most you're going to get from that is probably. So you're going to get pennies. But if you go indie, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you do all the heavy lifting yourself, but you also get the joy of choosing your own covers, getting your own editor in, deciding the nature of your book. Each part has pros and cons. And a mainstream publisher might very well, if you are the flavour of the month, give you a really good income and a big thought. You know, if that's what you're doing it for, that's the way to make a lot of money. But you can't just write for the money. You have to write because it's an incurable disease.
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. You just have to write for the love of it. Really, I think if you're just writing for the money, people will read it. People will read it. They read that.
No.
It's much easier ways to make money as well.
Yeah. But people can read the fact that it's not you.
I'm sorry, so I was a teacher, and ill health has meant that at this time I can't work. And so my dream, I've written for 10, 15 years, had rejection, currently unpublished. But so I've got a dream of earning at least half a living as a writer. And today, that dream is feeling, I know we've been really honest and realistic, but it's a little bit deflated, and I want to hold on to that dream. So it's not that I'm writing for the money, I've got the passion, but I'm thinking, can't I make money out of this passion?
Well, my answer to that would be, you can be a writer. It doesn't mean you just earn money from book sales. You know, you get yourself out there, do workshops. You know, I mean, I do workshops for primary schools and high schools. And, you know, go and do something. See if your local WI or something would be interested in you coming and giving a talk. And these kind of things. It's not going to earn you great money, but it's an audience as well, and also it helps to sort of keep things moving. I mean, let's face it, you know, the amount of people out there that are earning their living as a full-time writer. There aren't that many of them. And it's the same with, you know, with most art.
They did, yeah. But they did a survey for the bookseller last year, and the average take-home pay, the average earnings was £4,500.
Oh, luxury.
Tell that to kids
Oh,
these days. When I first started, which is looking back to the Victorian era, my first advance was £20,000, and I ended up being offered £1,000 for my last book, which is a huge. And it wasn't that the sales were poor. That's the other thing. It's just that
Changed, isn't it?
it is. You know, you can buy a book for 99p now. And actually on Kindle, for me now as an indie author, that's fine because I earn 70% of that. And I earn more now as an indie author than I did for several years as a published author. It was, the shock came when I'd sold, my royalty statement came through, and I'd sold, overall total for one book, I'd sold, I think it was something like 78,000 books. And my part of that was £4,100, and I just thought this is preposterous. And it's because they do it on special deals, because they box them up and send them out. And I just thought all those books, and that was my take home. And I just thought this was when I said we then went back for a new deal, and my agent said, you know, this is silly.
So did you accept being your agent off?
No, I've still got an agent.
You've still got an agent.
But she lets me, all my indie stuff, she doesn't take a cut off because I do all the work. If I've got something that I think would go through, but actually I'm just saying to Darren that she just retired, so I'm kind of a stick with that. But anything I thought would go commercial, would get foreign rights or film rights, I put through her.
Wow.
Because she's, you know, because there's a margin there for her to have. Because the agents aren't in it for their health either.
How do you market your work or get it out there?
Furiously! Mostly from social media. And then because I sell reasonably well, Amazon, once you've got some like 50 reviews, will start to put you and include you in special offers. Because I'm part of this cooperative, they negotiate special. You know, you get one that's offered for 99p, or they give you all that. They can do all that. But once you've got 50 reviews on Amazon, or something, I think it's 50 now, you can go into their special offers and they promote you. And whatever you think about Amazon, and there are lots of people who really don't like their ethos, I know several authors, household names, whose careers were on the map, have been saved from Amazon.
Why do people not like Amazon?
Because they don't pay tax.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, that.
Because they're stuffing mainstream publishers, and the publishers don't like it, which is fair enough. But if I sold a book, as I said, I'd get perhaps 15% of cover price, or sometimes 7% of cover price. If I sell it independently, I get 70% of cover price. And normally, if I sold it for 10% to a mainstream publisher, they would get the other 90%. So that's why publishers don't like them and have not a lot of good things to say about them.
And also, I mean, marketing your own work and publicising your own work is very difficult for creative people to do. It's just one of those things that creative people are pants at saying, look what I've got, this is great, this is really good, you really need this. We, you know, very often, I mean, I was reading about Stephen Fry said that he loves that moment when the book comes, the first print of his new book comes out. He says, I do this, I pop it on the coffee table and look at it that way. You know, I pop it next to Noam Chomsky and I pop it next to Shakespeare and to see how it looks. I do everything except dare to read a word of it, right? And it goes back to that uncertainty. And a lot of us just find it very hard. I find it really hard. I mean, social media, I agree, is really useful. Blogs. But I also think, I mean, I made a little film just to show where the whole thing came from. So there's something else out there. It is very hard because what a lot of it comes down to, for someone like me, is time and money. Have I got the time to do it all myself? If I haven't got the time, then I need the money. It's tricky to try and balance that out. You can pay somebody to do it, but I pay X amount of money to use a certain something to publicise and try and promote my last book. But in essence, all they're doing is a quick mail shot, and it's just they've got lots of contacts, and they just write it out quickly, a quick press release, and just hope for the best. There's no follow-ups. There's nobody chasing up saying, did you get the press release? Do you want more information? Do you want to speak to John about this?
And also as well with the mainstream publishers, they haven't got huge, because they are cutting everything to the bone, they haven't got huge marketing budgets either. So it's quite possible to write a book and they don't do any marketing whatsoever. So you end up doing it yourself anyway. The methods I use, I promote it on Facebook and Twitter, and I then do a paid advert on Facebook. They work really well. I then organise blog tours so that people who I appeal to bloggers on Facebook and say, would you like to review my book? I then mail shop and write a press release to everybody I can think of, including the local press, the local papers, the local radio stations. And that actually isn't too onerous in terms of time. You can write something and tweak it for all those different audiences. And then I send it to friends who I know will give you good reviews. I say they don't give you good reviews. They give you good reviews if it's all right. If they don't think it's all right, they won't give me any review, which is very tactful of them. So that gets it onto the algorithms in Amazon.
Yeah.
And I push it for those first. It's a bit like trying to push a great big rock uphill, but once it starts to appear in the algorithms on Amazon, it will start to sell because people will start to see it.
In the what? Sorry.
In the you know where it says on the bottom, this book is number 3 in the psychology charts of or women's fiction. That's an algorithm. So as your sales start to build, and it's worth putting your book into a peculiar category. So I put mine in. I think it was sexual health and marriage, because that was what the book was about. And so when you put a book up, you're allowed to tick which categories it's in. So I choose something that's vaguely like it, and the thriller I put into women's sleuths and something else. I can't remember what it was. But so it's worth looking down those categories to see where your book fits. And trying to get somebody to write good cover copy. If you've got any contact with good authors, or you know any authors, or you're friends with authors on Facebook, and you know them, you're not just doing it because you've friended them 3 days ago, but you've had some kind of interchange with them. You can ask them if they'll give you an endorsement or a review. Be prepared for them to say no, because it happens a lot.
So you wouldn't recommend us harassing you for the next year, then asking for that?
Also what helps is get in touch with local Waterstones. They're great. Or any bookshops, they're brilliant. When I had Sleep Taker coming out, I just happened to be in Waterstone shopping and saw the manager and kind of was looking at where my book might go on the shelf, and I was having a little look, and she said, "Oh, can I help you?" And I said, "Oh, I've just bashed out something, and I'm kind of, fantasising where it might sit on a shelf." And she went, "Oh, let's talk." And then they hosted a launch party. And champagne and the food and the press and all of it. And I literally just turned up, sweated, read a little bit, and sold hundreds and hundreds of copies. Wow. And they did it all. They did it all. So get in touch, because actually they really want to endorse local writers, and because.
Right. Whereabouts is Waterstone?
Well, I live in Peterborough, so I went to the Peterborough store. But any bookshops, if there's bookshops in, you're a March writer and there's a March bookshop, have a word with them. Because actually, Waterstones, quite cunningly, they obviously make more money per book than I do. And people were buying my book and buying lots of other books at the same time. So it's a fortune.
The other thing is,
laying on a bit of champagne.
If they don't give you the champagne and they don't put the photographs, and that happens, because I do one in my local record shop, because there isn't a bookshop. He always hosts me every time I do free, and I get someone to take the photographs and I send them to the local press. And so you've got to tart yourself around a bit.
Yeah.
And also, it isn't about saying this book is good. It's just saying local author does this.
Yeah. Because local papers will print it because it's news.
Yeah.
It's not saying, it's not you going, I've written a bestseller.
No, I'm just
Print it, just saying that I've got a book out, and they'll go, oh cool, local writers
Yeah.
bashed out a book. And
Can I just ask how that works? Because Waterstone's Peterborough would be my nearest branch as well.
Jackie's a manageress,
Right, no.
and she was lovely. I mean, I didn't know her. Now we're actually really good friends.
So
But
how does that work then? If they supply the champagne or whatever, and then the books that are sold, how do you sort of divvy that money up?
oh no, you don't. No money was kind of exchanged. She bought the books in from the publishing house.
All right.
So went in, she looked at the book, she liked the cover copy, she said, yeah, I host this little party, and then she bought all the books in, like
Right.
Waterstones buy books in.
So that was through a publisher, not a self-publisher?
Yeah, that was through a publisher, yeah.
Right.
And then they bought the books in, and then I got a royalty report.
Right.
Months later on it.
And also libraries, because people are very keen. I mean, most libraries want to remain open and they want to get as much going on. And I've done stuff with libraries where I've done a reading, and actually that is a time when you have to go and say, hello, I'm a local writer, and I'm putting a book out. Would you be interested in looking at an event? I'm really happy to do it. And normally they haven't got a budget. Some of them have got a budget for those kind of things. But what I normally do is bring along a box of books and I sell them, which I have brought in, so that the money's mine. And they host the event and get more people into the library who probably wouldn't normally come. And I get the money because I bought the books.
Yeah, and when you buy them as sources of writing, you do get the cheapness. If you sell them at the RRP, you're actually making your own cut.
Yes.
Also, look at within the story that you told. Think about all those different aspects of it, on what people and who it will appeal to. So, for example, the Havelock House book of mine, it was set in New Zealand. So I contacted New Zealand Press, and I sold, quite well over in New Zealand, because particularly in the area where the book was set. Also, because it was these Welsh people, and I'm a Welsh person, you go for that angle as well. So I had interviews, radio interviews and things with BBC Wales, and that helps. It spreads your name out a little bit. But because I live near Cambridgeshire, BBC Cambridgeshire took me on, and I did some radio interviews there. So you look at all the little aspects that are in your book, and think, well, which people can I pitch that to?
As you see, when I arrived here, I love food, and I only came for food. One of my books was called Cooking Up a Storm, so I contacted Sponge, the company Sponge that sells mail order cake, and said, I'd like to offer some prizes on Facebook. Would you do me an offer? And so they sold me the stuff at cost, and I did a huge promotion running a competition for my book, and at the same time promoting their product, and that went really, really well. But like you said about contacting people, you do have to think, if you're going to do self-promotion, you really have to think outside the box. You have to think of something that's quite fresh. And often, actually, it's quite good to talk to friends about what you think. You can't always come up with all the ideas yourself. So it's good to talk to people who, and say, what do you think, why would you buy my book? So I sometimes talk to friends about what would be the best marketing methods, or to come up with some new ones.
Yeah, because whether you're self-publishing or going for a publishing house or whatever, it's about where your book sits. Who's your audience, who you're targeting, reasons why you're targeting them, and then once you've worked that out, just go for them, go for the throat.
With Facebook ads, you can actually do that.
You can target, target audience. Yeah,
absolutely. People aged 23 to 45 who like motorbikes, you can get as narrow as that if you wanted to. I mean, I don't go as narrow as that, but that I've looked at the way that works in terms of ads done, and that seems to pay for itself.
Right, I'm getting signalled with a watch sign from
Oh.
the room, guys. I think we can all sit here all